Okay, making store and loot box mods for Dragon Age Inquisition. Before we start, there are a bunch of links in the video description. I recommend you download everything that is at those links. One of them is my modders resource at the Nexus that includes a bunch of Excel files and prepared EBXs that you're going to want. One links to the Dragon Age tool suite, which if you're making Dragon Age mods you probably already have, just in case. And one to HXD, which is my preferred hex editor. If you're already using a different one, that's fine, as long as it lets you edit EBX files, you're good. So, our most important program for this is probably ModMaker. Right here, click launch, you get this. This is where we get our overview of all the game's files and what is in them. This is where we're going to get all our information for the stores and loot boxes and what we're going to put in them. Now, the hex editor is going to become relevant later. For now, just know that it looks like this. But what we're going to do first is we're going to work with ModMaker, and I am going to show you how to make a store mod from scratch. Note that you do not have to do that. I already prepared a bunch of stuff to make it easier, because store modding from scratch is a lot of work. But just so you know, we're going to start with stores in ModMaker. And we're going to find ourselves a store. Let's keep, because that's my favorite. And here Asset Preview shows you everything you need for modding this particular store. Two important things. These checkboxes need to be on. If they're off, this means you're not going to have data you need, and this means that the data is going to be shown in the wrong format, and that means that anything you copy down will show up incorrectly in your hex editing file, and it's going to break stuff. So make sure that these are on at all times. For all Dragon Age Inquisition modding, there are two very important numbers in each file. That's this one and this one. I call this one EBX, I call the second one GUID. I know that is probably not what they're actually called, and I'm mispronouncing it, I don't care. These two numbers are basically the address of whatever you're referring to, of whatever thing you're referring to in the game. This is how the game knows what this file is referring to. Now I'm going to show you how I made my Haven store mod. What I did for that and why I have Deals Keep open right now is that if you look at the Haven store and compare it to the Deals Keep store, you will notice that the Haven store, this is its inventory. There is a lot less to scroll through than in Deals Keep. Deals Keep was the one I found that had the most item slots available, and that's important because in Dragon Age Inquisition modding you cannot add new items. All you can do is replace what already exists in the game files. If I were to try to expand this list, it would break the store. So what I've done instead for all of my store mods, and what I strongly recommend you also do, is I fooled the game into thinking that this inventory belonged to the other stores. The way we're going to do that is we're going to note down those important numbers, EBX and GUID, in an Excel file, like this one. And if you downloaded my Excel stuff, you'll already have all of them, because I already put them down. So, how are we going to convince the game that this is actually the Haven store? Well, for starters, we're going to move this file to a place where we can edit it, because you cannot edit things in the ModMaker, because BioWare and especially EA Games hates the modding community. So, I'll show you. Debug, export EBX binary. That is what you need to make a file that you can work with. No, this is not useful right now. And this is where our hex editor comes in. The file we just made is actually this one. And as you can see, it is impossible to read by a human. This is why our EBX and GUID copies are so important, because by finding those, and you have to search for by hex value, not text string, otherwise it's not going to be able to find stuff. This is how you find stuff in the file, just by copying the number and searching for it. Now, first of all, we're gonna fool the game into thinking that this is now the Haven store. I'm also gonna save the file under a different name so I know that it's actually Haven. There, that's just a good way to keep track of what store you're working on. Now, these two numbers tell the game that this file belongs to the Daleskeep store. We are going to fool it by replacing them, like that, and like that. Ta-da! This is now the store inventory file for the Haven Sacred store. And now, what are we going to do? We're going to replace items. If you were starting from scratch, I will show you. What you would do is you would open the store in ModMaker. You would scroll down to where the list of the inventory starts. See here, items for sale, member. Each member is one item. What you would ordinarily do is you would open this. This directs you to the actual items asset preview, including its EBX and GUI. You would copy those down, close this, scroll down, note down the number in stock. You would note down the offset, not the number itself, but this little thing right here. Then you would scroll down some more, find the next item, open, copy, close, scroll down, number in stock, copy, etc. That's a lot of work, which I strongly recommend you don't do because you don't need to, because I already did all of it for you. And this is also why I recommend that you keep using the Daleskeep store as a base, because I've only done this for Daleskeep. If you want to edit the inventory of any other store using that store's base inventory file, you're going to need to do this for it. Note down all the EBXs and GUIs of all the items and their number and their stock offsets. So yeah, please use Daleskeep. It is much less of a pain. Now, the Daleskeep has a couple of peculiarities. The first of which is that a bunch of its inventory is bound to plot conditions. That means that it will only spawn for certain classes, usually. I couldn't figure out how to make that go away, so I just noted down which ones have block conditions and ignored all of them, which gives us the remainder of the store inventory to work with. That's still 86 items. That's plenty for store inventory as far as I'm concerned. Now, in order to replace these, you would, well, if you want it to be organized, first you would copy all of this down and put it in a different sheet, like this one. This would be my Haven store. See, here's all EBX and GUI. That's the ones I copied. And stock offset. Then next to the EBX and GUI, you would note down the EBX and GUI of the amount of the item that you want to replace, that you want to put in the store inventory. Like, for example, this means please put Arbor Blessing here as the first item. How did I get these numbers? The same way you get the store numbers, by going to the item asset in ModMaker. Like, for example, crafting. Like, for example, this is the crafting recipe for Defender Coat Arms. You would note down the EBX and GUI here. And you would probably make a note of what the numbers refer to, just so you don't lose track of anything. And then you would copy, what you would do is you would put Defender Coat Arms, take that, put here, take that, put there, take that, put there. And now you have all the information you need to replace whatever the first item in the store inventory is with Defender Coat Arms. I'm not going to do that because it takes time. And also I already have a list of replacements. What is important there, as you might have noticed, all of this is in uppercase. These numbers are in lowercase. I've already transferred everything to uppercase in my prepared items files, but for any new items that you want to add yourself, I've never actually tested if the hex editor accepts lowercase letters, but just know that in coding, lowercase letters and uppercase letters are not at all the same, so there's a very good chance it won't work in lowercase. That means that we're gonna convert these numbers to uppercase, and for both of them, there. And then these numbers are what you would use as your replacement values. But we're not gonna do that right now, we're gonna work with what I already have. When it comes to replacing items, you're going to do that in your hex editor. And you're going to do that by finding the item's original, like the original items codes. Like that. You'll notice that the GUID is always directly below the EBX if you have this layout. Which, by the way, I recommend you do, because that's going to be important later. I'll just show you how to make your hex editor look exactly like mine, or well, in HXD anyway. You're going to go to Options, View, set your bytes per row to 16, and set your byte group size to 4. And that will give you this exact layout, which makes for very easy editing, and will be important when it comes to editing the amounts and pricing, which we'll get to in a bit. For now, just know that if it's laid out like this will be an EBX, this will be GUID, EBX, GUID, EBX, GUID, etc. And that's where these pretty colors come in, because if life were horrible, what you would have to do is find every single EBX and GUID. Actually, you can find them together. Show you that. And then you would note down the difference, paste. And you would do that for every single item in this list. Thankfully, you do not have to. That's what these colors are about. If everything is one color, what that means is that everything is in one row. It's all clumped together. So you can copy paste this whole thing as just one big chunk. You don't have to do them individually. The way I usually do that is by first replacing the first item in the list, because that turns the line red, and that lets me know that that is the endpoint for this data set. And then I find the last. This is the first one. This is your last one. Find that. This is where you're going to start from. I'm going to copy all of these. Start here. There. Scroll, 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 scroll. Find your one red line, because that was where you stopped. This is the data set all selected right now. Paste. And all of these items have now been replaced with all of these items. The same goes for this entire block right here. This can all be copy pasted at the same time. You don't have to do anything individually. Same goes for these three. The only exceptions are this one and this one, which if you look for this one, you will see there's a little gap here. So you cannot copy paste that as part of a block. You have to do that on its own. And then also do the same for this number. One good thing to know is that HXD at least will inform you if you've made a mistake in this. Like if you say forget your first line, if you do this, it will warn you that you're changing the file size. That means that the number of lines you've selected here do not match up with the number of lines you're trying to paste in. You want to make sure that this error never ever ever pops up. If it does, if you change the file size of your EBX, it's going to become unusable by the game. So cancel, don't do that ever. So that is how you very easily can change. This stores entire inventory with about 10 clicks. Now that's the items. In addition to that, you're going to have to work with the amounts. That tells the game how many of each item you want it to have in stock. The LSKey base has infinite amounts of everything. I prefer to not work with those because you can't buy in bulk. And I really like being able to buy 100 of each item at the same time. So in my base file, that's this one, I've already modified all the items to be 999. If you're okay with having that amount of every item, all you have to do is do the thing where you fill the game by changing the EBX and GUID of the store, and then change whatever inventory EBX and GUIDs you want to, and that will be in your new store mod. If you want to change the amounts, That's why it's important to have the 0004080C layout up here and have these addresses right here, because that tells you the location of the amounts, which is what the stock offset is. This is important because it says amount hex right here and 5,000 here. If I want to change the amount of this item to 5,000, I would copy paste this number, not 5,000. It does not look like this in your hex file. Also important to note there is that I call this the amount in hex, but these are not actually hexadecimal values. If you use a decimal number to hexadecimal number converter, it will not give you this value for 5,000. This appears to be a numbering system that BioWare invented, and I don't fully understand how it works. Which means that if you want to know what a specific number would be in the hex file, you basically have to guess, or you have to use a value that's already known. In my crafting mats Excel file, I have a tab called amounts that lists a few of the known ones. These. Strongly recommend you use those, or you can experiment and see if you can find more values. So addresses, EBX. What this actually tells you is row 12A0, column 04. So you're going to go to row 12A0, right here, column 04, that's this one. Here. As you can see, it already says 5,000. And the amounts, unlike EBXs and GUIDs, are not next to each other, but when it comes to items that are in blocks like this one, that's green, all of these amounts do follow a pattern of sorts. So I'm just going to change a few so you can see it. It looks like that. And if you check the actual addresses, then 12EC is actually the next item on our list here. So we know that's correct. And moving on, 1310 is indeed the one after that. So as long as items are clustered like this, their stock offsets will follow the pattern with the lines going down diagonally like this. When you get to the ones that where the EBX is in a separate place, you do have to start paying attention to the offset again, because it will also be at a slight variation from the usual pattern. And there's another thing, which is that these two are red. That is for a reason. It is because this stock offset and this stock offset both link to this set of EBX and GUID. What that means is that the store will spawn this item twice. Once at the location listed here with this amount, and once with this amount. If you only want it to spawn once, just set the secondary amount to 0 and put the amount you actually want on this location, and it will only spawn in that amount. This is not something that is possible to change. This is an error in the base file, and yeah, just work with it. You can actually make sure you have twice as much of a certain item by putting it in this exact spot. So just work around that. So that's how you change the amounts. How you change the pricing. Again, gives us the problem that we don't, there's really no way to calculate what a number would look like in BioWare's weird number coding system. Which means I recommend only using these amounts, which are the ones that are known. And this is where the multipliers are for the Daleskeep store. These are their locations. So if you go to 1250, 1250, right here, that is the buy multiplier for this store. And right now it is set to a 25% discount, as you can see. If you wanted to buy, let the store buy items at full price, you would change it to the value for 1, which is this. Note that there are different locations for the cell and the cell with Josephine's perk, I forget what it's called. So if you want to set your sell price, you would have to modify both of these values. It is possible to make items free by setting the value to that, just zeros. And that will essentially tell the store to multiply the usual sell value by 0, which makes it 0. And then all the items in the store are sold entirely free of charge. So that's how you do store modding. I'm just going to demonstrate how you would import this back in real quickly. So I just modified a bunch of these to be 5,000. And we're going to change these. Let me see that I do that. We're going to change all of these to, wait, first mark it red, find that one, copy this, and do that. And let me see which store is this right now. It's still Dale's Keep, so I'm gonna just go ahead and change this to Haven. It's that one. So there's how you do that. Then we're gonna go back to Mod Maker, stores, find Haven. And now you're going to click Import EBX Binary. Click on that. There you go. And as you can see, it now lists the items that we put in at a stock of 5,000. Scroll down a bit further. You'll see that this is unchanged. This is the original Dale's Keep inventory at 999 because that's what it was already set at. Now if you wanted to make this into a mod, all you have to do is here is press Save As, create, and it will make a DAI mod for you with this store modified however you wish. Now when it comes to finding EBX and GUIDs for items that you want to replace, like this, I already did that for a bunch of stuff. Among the Excel files are materials, which lists all the crafting materials, their EBXs and GUIDs, some of the Fey touched, all room crafting materials, and then in the other items file, a lot more stuff. If you want something that is not in these Excel files, you will have to find the item yourself in Mod Maker and note down its EBX and GUID, and then you will be able to import it into whatever store you wish. One additional note for store making. In this file, there's a little tab with stores that also lists what the store is used for. These 3 are actually other people's mods that I have installed, so I decided not to mess with those stores when it comes to my game. And then these 2 stores, and this one, spawn Romance Quest specific items. If you mess with their inventory, if you get the Romance Quest, the item will not be in there. You will have to uninstall the mod, go into the game, buy the item, and if you want the mod back, you have to reinstall it. That's a pain in the ass, so I suggest only modifying game stores that don't use anything important. Also, some of the value stores only spawn once you're a certain level, and this one only spawns once you've discovered Sky Old. So those are not ideal for store modification if you want to use the stores at the beginning of the game. And yeah, that should be enough to let you make store mods of your own. Now moving on to loot boxes. These are basically stores with 1 extra value. It's really very much the same process. For these I did the same thing as with the stores, in that I grabbed 1 loot box that I use as a base. It is this one, Haven Crafting Mats, because this one has 11 items available, and that's more than any other loot box in the game that I could think of. And again, you're going to do we do the thing with copying the EBX and GUI and using that to fool the game into thinking we are using this for different lootbox. We're going to make an example right now. There. Here. Move that to the first drop in prologue. There we go. This is now prologue drop 1. For these, actually, changing the items is even easier because you don't actually have to search to know where they are. You see these zeros here? That means this is where the identification of the store ends, and this is the first line of the store's contents. The last line will always be right above the data container blah 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 stuff. So this is the last line of your store inventory. So we can always copy between the zeros and between data container and paste over that, and that will give us a replacement of all the items we want. Now in the base, there are a couple things. One is that like Dale's Keep Store, there are two amount locations that refer to the same item, so this item will spawn twice. Unless you set the secondary locations to an amount of 0, in which case it will only spawn once. Because this is a loot box, it has a minimum amount and a maximum amount. You have to change both of them. Really just set both of them to the same value, and then you'll get that exact value in the game itself. Also, a lot of loot boxes do have plot conditions. In this case, it was possible for me to change all of them to 0 already, and that deactivates them. So this loot box, if you use my prepared EBX file, will drop all 11 items for all classes. If for whatever reason you want to modify a different base loot box, find the plot conditions, write them down, and set them all to 0. Now when it comes to the amounts, again, same thing with the address file. So 78 is right here. And then the maximum amount and minimum amount are always in pairs. So 78 and 7DC, A and C, are right next to each other. In the case of this one, 92C, this is 1, this is the minimum. The maximum will be the first item on the next line. It's always adjacent, so just change this value, and you would have the amount that you want. Same deal for making the mod itself. You find the thing you just modified, import the binary, okay, and as you can see, it now has the items that we added to it. And close that, and you would save and make your mod, just like that. So that's lootbox editing. That should be everything you need, I think. Again, some loot boxes are linked to specific plot items. When it comes to the prologue, I wrote a couple things down here. This is the order in which you can loot these items, or in which I usually loot the items when I'm going through the prologue. As you can see, the files are not in order, which means that drop 6, which is in the valley, will be encountered before drop 5, which is at Roderick and Liliana's. So just keep track of that if you're modifying prologue drops, that if you want an item way at the beginning, you should probably put it in one of these that are encountered first in the game. Other than that, have at it. If you need additional help with anything, I'm the author of the modders resource on the Nexus that is linked in the description. You can contact me there. I might check comments on this video, but I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube, so contacting me on the Nexus, the odds of me responding are a lot better. So, have fun making your star mods. Please do credit me if you use any of this stuff, because this took a long time to put together, and I would appreciate credit for my work should you use it in a mod of your own. So go for it, have fun, feel free to use my resources, and I look forward to seeing what mods you make.